Hi there, dear listener. Laszlo here with a quick pre-roll message for you. Before we get started, I want to let you know there are all kinds of convenient ways for you to support my efforts to bring you all these podcast shows on Chinese history, Chinese sayings, and tea history. If you go to my website at teacup.media and click the support button at the top, you'll find a bunch of ways to show some appreciation. There's Patreon, where you can get early access to new episodes, exclusive content, and an invite to the Teacup Media Discord channel, and more. CHP Premium, that also has early access, exclusive episodes, and ad-free versions of the entire CHP back catalog. Plus, there's several other ways to donate to the show as well. Check the episode show notes for a link to that very page. And my deepest thanks for listening and supporting me and my humble efforts. Hey everybody, thanks for checking out my latest effort. This is Laszlo Montgomery of the China History Podcast and the Tea History Podcast too, and welcome to the Chinese Sayings Podcast. Like most learners of the Chinese language, my collection of dictionaries and books includes several of these volumes on Chinese sayings, which are called chengyu in Mandarin. This can be translated as idioms, sayings, idiomatic expressions, or proverbs. There are thousands of them in Chinese, but most are rather obscure. Every language and every culture has these things. I remember phrases like, "A stitch in time saves nine," and "You reap what you sow," and "God helps those who help themselves," and, of course, "It is a poor workman who blames his tools." They all have some story behind them, or maybe something that documents the first use of the saying. In China, they have a lot of these phrases. They're not always, but almost always, 4 characters long. In the Chinese language, every character is a single syllable. So in just 4 characters, 4 syllables, these idioms sum up an entire concept, moral, or idea. To me, the most interesting aspect of these Chinese chengyu is that a lot of them, most of the ones I'll introduce anyway, have stories behind them that go back, in some cases, to thousands of years ago to China's oldest dynasties, the Shang, Zhou, Qin, and Han, when the great Chinese sages like the Duke of Zhou, Lao Tzu, Confucius, and Zhuangzi walked the earth. Throughout history, and certainly amongst older folks, they've known most all of these chengyu since their earliest days growing up. You know, if you're a student of Chinese, you could do fine without knowing any of these chengyu. But using the right one, in the right way, and if you could manage to guess or remember the tones, it really breaks the ice at parties. We have these in all languages, simple phrases that communicate a whole idea. How is that? That's because of the story behind it. To meet your Waterloo. Huh? Well, unless you know about Napoleon and his defeat in 1815 at that historic town just south of Brussels, you'll have no idea what this saying means when you hear it. So it is with these Chinese idiomatic expressions, these chengyu. They all have stories. Well, I've gathered together my trove of chengyu books, many of which have followed me around the world since about 1980, and I've painstakingly gone through each one, and believe it or not, I actually found years and years worth of material for you. These episodes will be brief, 8 to 10 minutes long or less, 1 phrase per episode, and what will you get out of it? Well, you'll learn a new chengyu, a new Chinese saying, and even if you never studied Mandarin, 4 syllables, baby, come on, you can do it. Try them out on your colleagues, your spouse, the cashier at your local drugstore, anybody. If you grew up speaking Chinese or are perhaps fluent in Mandarin and already know these chengyu, well, maybe you know the phrases, but do you know the story behind the phrase and why those 4 characters that seemingly don't go well together have so much meaning? Even if you don't use them, they're pretty interesting and filled with history and historic people. So consider tuning in each week for a new episode and start building your collection. As it is with other Teacup shows, I'll keep all Chinese terms listed at the show notes and the website. The Pinyin, Chinese, and English. Feel free to download and print the PDFs or save them to your device. There's a little something for everyone at the Chinese Sayings Podcast. So thanks for checking this out. I hope you'll give this Chinese Sayings podcast a try and that it meets with your general approval. This is your humble creator and presenter, Laszlo Montgomery, wishing you all the best all the time, and I hope you enjoy the Chinese Sayings podcast.